During the last week's Barrie City Council meeting, residents discussed the development at 175 and 199 Essa Road and 50 Wood Street. The proposal includes more than 4,000 residential units, mixed-use high-rises, townhouses, commercial spaces, along with designated school block. The proposed development will have 13 residential towers, 113 two-story townhouses, and 98 three-story townhouses. The development also proposes 196 parking spaces. Craig Busch, representing Vision Barrie, advocated for a high-quality urban life in Barrie. He suggested that the development could address potential traffic concerns by adopting a high-density urban village model, allowing residents to access amenities and work without needing cars, thereby enhancing quality of life and elevating traffic. Darren Vella from Greenwell Construction said the plan focuses on community amenities and reduce car dependence while also respecting existing zoning such as that for a nearby curling club. Norman Speake, representing the Barrie Curling Club, raised concerns about the development's impact on the club. He emphasized the need to revise their lease due to the proposed new access road and called for greater clarity and involvement from the city to address these issues. Mayor Alex Nuttall highlighted that Barrie has not yet achieved the intensification standards set by provincial and federal governments for housing fund eligibility. He also pointed out the city's inability to control conflicting directions from ministries of education, transportation, and municipal affairs and housing, noting a lack of coordination between them. The council approved the motion for city staff to initiate the community infrastructure and housing accelerator application. It was also agreed that if neither school board opts to build a school in the development, the land would be transferred to the city at no cost for parkland use.
There are 5 deputations requested or received from individuals wishing to speak to motion 23-G-280 concerning the submission from Innovative Planning Solutions on behalf of Greenwell Construction report and master plan in support of community infrastructure and housing accelerator order 175 and 199 Essa Road and 50 Wood Street. In accordance with the city's procedural bylaw, each deputation will be permitted a maximum of 5 minutes. Once your name is called, please approach the podium for your deputation. I'll start by asking Mr. Craig Busch on behalf of Vision Barrie to deliver your deputation. Mr. Busch, you can approach the microphone, and once you start speaking, the 5 minutes will begin, my friend.
Yeah, that's going to be a tight time frame, but we'll do it.
For sure.
I have a visual display. Oh, there it is. Since it's only 5 minutes and I am content rich in this, I'm just going to skip right to the end, okay, and then flip through it afterwards. Just so you know, Vision Barrie is a group of citizens whose purpose is to create the most energized, connected city with the highest quality of life in Canada, here in Barrie. I'm here to advocate. I'm not here to speak for or against this. I'm very concerned if we build this as shown, we're going to end up with Park Place, but worse. This is going to be a traffic issue. Close to 10,000 people driving to work, driving home every single day. And the best we're going to be able to do is mitigate this. And all the development fees we get, we're going to spend on roads. So I'm here to advocate on behalf of a quality of life where people don't have to drive. And so I think this could be a great development. I think it's a great opportunity with density, and density creates opportunities. And it creates opportunities for actually having a proper urban village where people can work, live, eat, drink, socialize, go to the doctor, go to the dentist, have daycare, could have a senior's home, can have all these opportunities for work where people don't have to get in their cars. They don't have to get in their cars for quality of life. They don't have to get in their cars to go do their shopping. Okay? We can mitigate the whole traffic problem by turning the center of this development into, doesn't have to be low density, it can be residential as well, it can be 5 stories, but what we need to do is create a human community on the first floor. Human community doesn't happen on 5th floor green terraces. Okay? They're not open to the community, they're windswept, and they're not green. Okay? AstroTurf, maybe. So I'm asking that the council be very thoughtful about where we're going to. What's our proactive, what's our end game here? Is the end game going, hey, we got a piece of property, let's put as many places as we can because we need to build affordable housing. And the question is, what is affordable housing? And I would suggest affordable housing is not having to own a car. The average car owner costs them $1,000 a month to run and operate their car. That's $12,000 after taxes that can be spent for rent or spending within the community. Huge economic boom. So we're suggesting an 8-village strategy. Barrie's an interesting opportunity because we're not a grid like Toronto. We've got the lake, we've got the highway. Once upon a time, the highway ran beside us, but now we've passed it and gone the other side. And now it's in the way, and now it's a problem, we're trying to mitigate it. But if we embrace the highway as an opportunity, and we embrace our shape of city and say, here's 8 targeted villages, one being downtown, and then also the campus district with the college and RVH, we can build a network of transportation with a long-term vision to connect these 9 areas so that people don't have to drive across the city and they have alternative routes of transportation. So the core of this is urban villages, and the overall design is transportation-oriented design, where you build around transportation and create your density around planned transportation. So what I'm asking for is a proactive view on what happens and how Essa fits in with this, how the fairgrounds fit within. Let's not treat it as isolated. Let's treat it as part of the big picture. Okay, I just pressed the up button? No? I pressed the next button? Yes. Okay. Give you a quick idea what urban villages are. They're high density, mix of housing. By the way, mono housing goes into decay. Jane Finch was a great project. They planned, it was gonna be wonderful. Mono, you have to have a mix of housing for it to be vital. And you have to have people on the first floor for it to be vital, and for it to be safe, and for it to have community. It's got a central pedestrian shopping area. It should be pedestrian, the best ones are. Montreal has put in 50 pedestrian roads, and they're doing it retroactively. They're not working on a greenfield. We're working on a greenfield here. We can just say, we want it, let's do it, and let's create that community within the space. And I think the people here that are around this area would agree that having an urban village and having a centralized place would increase their quality of life. Affordability, which I spoke to, transit, reduce traffic congestion, and I gotta say the environment. Like, 2023 is the warmest year in history, and we can mitigate car trips right now by the decisions we make so that people don't have to jump in the car and go get their daily needs or go to their work.
Sorry, Mr. Busch, the 5 minutes is complete.
Complete, may I just flip to that? Oh, that's the walkability score for around the transit area.
Is this online for members of the public to be able to take a look at?
Not yet, shortly. The website's
Shortly?
being built.
Okay, because I think
But
that
that's the map of the 9 areas
Wonderful.
that we need to connect. Okay?
Thank you. I think there's
you.
a question, actually, Mr. Busch, sorry.
Yeah.
Councilor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Busch. You touched on some of the components that you wouldn't like to see, like, too much of a design reliant on parking to force people to depend on parking. I think what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not that you don't want people to drive, it's you want them to live in a community where they have the freedom to choose whether they want to drive as much or not. Could you maybe elaborate on, if you saw this community designed it in a better vision, what would it look like besides some of the points that you touched already? Maybe expand for both people watching at home, members of council, and people in the audience, kind of an enthusiastic vision I guess we can all get behind.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't put, thank you for the question. I definitely wouldn't put roads through it. So there's the opportunity to run the main road along Essa and the 400 and not run it through the center of all the population. That will bisect the whole development and eliminate activities on the first floor. It'll just basically be a highway. 10,000 people will be a highway through the center of it. But they can take that along the edge of the highway in Essa where nobody cares. One of the big problems we've got is people are required to face up on major arteries. They're retail. And so if we relax that, and I know that's been done in the past, the center needs to turn towards the center. Doesn't mean it can't also face up onto the main artery, But by turning it into the center, we create a livable space rather than people trying to sit on the edge of Essa and have a coffee with their friends. Like, it's just not inviting to community. So I would take that main road and I would take it to the outside, and I would leave the center as pedestrian as possible, and go with slant parking, and then maybe even raise the whole center onto one pedestal so there could be parking underneath.
Perfect. And then finally, Mayor Nuttall, your vision that you're describing, it sounds a lot to me like what a lot of us already know. And it's not a Europe example, it's colleges and universities. People like colleges and universities. They remember if they attended, that they were walkable, that they were fun places to be, that they were engaging, that there was still enough parking, except just in adequate places. So could you maybe elaborate on how, because some people hear the word urban villages and don't know what it's like. Some people hear it and maybe take away the wrong aspect, but I think of like Stroud. Stroud is a walkable small town, village. Allendale, kind of the heart of it historically has been kind of a similar notion. So could you maybe elaborate on the idea of an urban village?
Kind of the new aspects are placemaking. And so having a main road go through at the center of a town kind of minimizes, whether it's walkable, gets a decent walkability score, it's affected by lights and traffic and crossing major roads and such. But really it's more planned to have a sense of community where there's central gathering and it's calm. So Friday Harbor would be a great example of placemaking. And I know we can't all have what Innisfil has, but we could. And I have a place in Sonoma, California, and that's just a classic example where they planned it, they kept it minimal in the center, it's walkable, every day is a quality experience. And a lot of us go to Europe, I think, to experience that, but we could have that here. And we could have reputation for it in Barrie.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and thank you, Mr. Busch, not only for the presentation but the booklet. I know there's a lot more detail, like even how you envision the number of jobs and how. You're not just telling us what you want. You're kind of doing your part for the how. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Busch, for your presentation, and Councilor Morales, thank you. I'll now call, sorry, Mr. Busch, if you come back. That's twice you tried to get away from the mic. Councilor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. I thought you wanted more time, so I want to extend your time.
Yeah, thanks. Bring it on. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation and for the booklet. And I haven't, obviously gone through it in detail, but I was curious. I believe it was April, the group was here and you were here to talk about this development. In the previous iteration, there was no school area. And I'm curious, the school area has been added. Are schools, or where do schools fit with the urban village design? Are they part of it, or how do they fit? And what do you see as the pro or con of a school now be included in this development
I actually have a
application?
slide on that. Would you like me to show that through you, Mr. Mayor? Is that?
Yes, if we can try to be brief, yes.
Okay. I don't think I have access to.
Sorry, can we load that back up to address the councilor's question?
Okay, thank you. I don't seem to have power on the clicker. Oh, it's one down. It's the next slide, if you've got. There we go. So the purple areas, the large purple areas that aren't bisected by driveways and such, so basically the center, the urban village would be the black dotted line there. And the central areas would be shops, restaurants and such on the first floor, and could be offices and such on the second and third floor. And if there are 5 stories, there could be apartments above. But everything facing that center area, including the front of the pedestals and the parking, are part of that urban village. And the whole area is walkable. I've discovered pocket parks, and I heard the presentation the other day on how hard it is to maintain our parks now with the volume. Parks don't always have to be huge, they just have to be in proximity. So this includes pocket parks that are very accessible to people day to day. And so the whole idea is that would be in the center, and that is built in with the schools going in. And it's in the center, it doesn't really have to change that much if the schools are there or not, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Sorry, Mr. Busch, quickly, is this the same site, essentially?
This is the site.
Yep.
This is the current site.
How large is that school area you've put aside?
I think you have the school area 6 acres?
Like, I think that's what's been proposed, but I just,
I just
so
did
essentially you've
within the
taken the
map.
exact same amount, right? Like, that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to confirm.
I took the exact same map. I just
Perfect,
dialed it in.
wonderful.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harris, do you have any other questions? Is that it? That's it? Okay.
Okay.
I think this is the final time, Mr.
Okay.
Busch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We'll now move to our second deputation. This is Mr. Vella of Innovative Planning Solutions to deliver a deputation. Mr. Vella, you have 5 minutes that will begin upon your speaking.
Thank you, worship members of council. Good evening. My name is Darren Vella from IPS. I'm here this evening on behalf of Greenwell Construction, Inc., the owners of the subject property. As everybody knows, this property does represent a strategic parcel that has remained vacant for many years. Taking the step forward, taking the initiative of engaging the CHIA process, I believe will go a long way in moving development forward on the property. We may not all agree on the form of development. The key variable in understanding does the development fit with the City of Barrie is your official plan. And the application that we have before you is not proposing to amend your official plan. It's proposing to take some of the key pieces out of your official plan and really enhance this Essa Road corridor. So the CHIA is a provincial tool that has been specifically designed by the province to expedite approvals for key housing projects. I think this is a key housing project for the City of Barrie in many ways, as it introduces a built form that I think the city really, really wants to see happen, a greater amount of higher density condominium apartment style units. It is extremely important for everyone to understand that the CHIA process is a zoning land use tool. So there is lots of time to discuss the design of the site, the layout of the site. All the CHIA process will do is establish some fundamentals, parking ratios, heights of buildings, densities, etc. So there are other opportunities, future applications through which we can discuss further design improvements to the site. We have designed a master plan, in our opinion, that is well thought out and includes necessary components of a complete community. We have completed technical reports to produce the concept that you see before you to demonstrate that it works from a zoning perspective. So the zoning we are asking for implements a mix of uses. It will allow for people, it will allow for jobs. It is located in a strategic growth area in your official plan and along your intensification corridor. So for this particular site, there is no part of the ground floor that is not going to be activated. All of the podiums possess ground floor townhouse units internally and externally along Essa Road. Every single piece of the ground floor is utilized as commercial space with outdoor opportunities for patios or other commercial related uses, which is really what we're trying to do to enhance that Essa Road corridor. I think it's also important to understand that we're proposing a parking ratio on this site where not everyone is going to be able to have a car. So we agree with what Mr. Busch is saying. We are designing this site so people have to live here without a car. There's a major transit system on Essa Road. We're 800 meters to the Allendale GO station. We fully expect people to use other forms of transit to go about their daily lives living on this property. So we did have a public meeting, and we did have some round of comments. We tried to address those comments through the revised submission. For example, there's an introduction of a school site, there's some enhanced open spaces, there's a better mixture of uses, there's a greater buffer from the existing residents to the north on Campbell, and we're trying to design a signature building right at the intersection of Highway 400 and Essa Road, one that establishes a very welcoming gateway, as Essa Road is a gateway into the City of Barrie and into the urban growth center. We're leaving the Wood Street property alone. There's no more development proposed in the Wood Street parcel. This land is being set aside for flood attenuation and to help alleviate any flooding concerns from existing residents in this community. From a zoning perspective, I also wanted to quickly touch on the Curling Club. So the Curling Club parcel will remain unchanged. Their use will continue to be permitted. Any discussion relating to the lease as it relates to the Curling Club is not a zoning related matter. So that matter will be addressed between both my client and the Curling Club. I will say publicly that we are working and we plan to continue to work with the Curling Club to accommodate their use and ensure the zoning does not affect their overall operation. So we want to keep the dialogue open, and we're saying that to ensure that it is known publicly. So in closing, the CHIA is a key step that will move.
Sorry, Mr. Vella, I gotta cut you off as we're past the time limit.
I'm just going to say, I just hope council will endorse General Committee's motion for this evening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Vella. Are there any questions around the table? Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, through Mayor Nuttall, to Mr. Vella. And I'll front this because I know last year when we were having preliminary conversations, I did declare a personal interest because I was a Barrie Curling Club member at that time. I'm not currently a Curling Club member, but I do have a Curling Club question. In your recent comment there, caring for like past conversations, and we've had many different letters in, and they're even part of the package this evening from the Curling Club. Can you define loosely for me when you make reference to what consists of in use? So we know that historically there's questions about parking and access, zoning tied to maybe property taxes or how that works. So what does the landowner view as protecting the use of the Curling Club?
So I believe through Mayor Nuttall to Councillor Kungle, there is a lease in place that Greenwell as the landlord has to honor. So if there's any modifications proposed to that lease, obviously it needs to be discussed with the Curling Club. To my knowledge, there haven't been any changes proposed to that lease. So we're really trying to understand what the development will look like on the property from a zoning perspective so that we can have meaningful discussions with the Curling Club and how we integrate their property with the overall development of the site. So as you can see with the site plan, we're not proposing to touch the Curling Club property. So there's a hectare of land that is being set aside. There is some planning that also goes into ensuring that land has a future use, but that's not to say that the Curling Club is an important part of the site and will continue to remain.
Wonderful. I've got one more follow-up question to that. So when we talk about not touching the property, does that mean there's also no intention of doing any like reduced setbacks? Like the footprint is the footprint, but if you go through any setbacks, there's nothing that will actually encroach into the current property lines that are clearly defined based on what's in that tenant agreement?
Right.
Okay.
Through Mayor Nuttall to Council Kungle, we did include a brief description in our CHIA submission package. So there are going to be some changes to the Curling Club property. For example, we're proposing some enhanced landscaping to beautify that property along these new roads if the roads get built as shown. So we want to improve from a green perspective the interface with the Curling Club property and these new streets. And we also want to create a very safe access for the Curling Club site. So there's a lot of work going on in that area right now. There's big highway improvements happening. There's a lot of changes. We want to ensure that there's a very safe access point with more development, with more change coming.
And then I guess last question to that around just proximity to changes coming, and it's great to hear around beautification of that space and that being inviting for all involved in the development. So thank you for that. Is there, I guess my last question is, what part of the process, and maybe I've missed it, where the view of the Curling Club as the current and only existing building on that site is visualized in scale to what's planned? So I've only seen images where it's like a block print, but is there something coming down the line that can give more of a 3D appreciation of how far you're coming into that and what the actual surrounding area might appear to look like to help maybe bring residents along and or understand the relationship between the existing and is that to scale or not to scale to what you're proposing? in the bordering vicinity of the curling club.
Through your worship to Councillor Kungle, yes, I think that is coming. I think everyone's really anxious to see it. It's just we're not there yet. So that is a plan of subdivision site plan matter. So that's when we actually start to talk about creating ownership parcels and subdividing this large piece into smaller blocks. So that would be the most appropriate time to start looking at what those properties will look like.
Okay, thank you, and I think that's a good opportunity to share that information about like managing expectations and when and what will come forward at different parts in the planning process. So thank you, Mr. Vella.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Kungle. I'm now going to go to Councillor Harris, and I'm going to go to Councillor Harvey.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mayor Nuttall, and thank you, Mr. Vella. And thank you for bringing up the curling club proactively. Team Canada is not playing this time, so we have a much better representation from the curling club because they were men's team were playing last time. We were here at council with this item. So a lot of the concern the curling club has obviously is the unknown, right? We in the picture that we received, there's nothing there. It's just a kind of blacked out area. And I get it's early, and I know this is the CHIA conversation, not the details of the development conversation, which will happen. There'll be a website for people to give comment to and a consultation process. And even before we even actually approve a CHIA order, which is not happening tonight, this is about making the process go forward. So I don't want to be too early in the discussion if these questions are early, but given that we're all here and the curling club members are here and it's in Ward 8 and I get lots of emails and calls and understand the importance of the curling club to our community, is there anything to date as far as the conversation with the curling club that is concerning to Green World, or are the expectations, are the requests, are the of the curling club in order with what their lease is, what their current land is, what their use is, and it's just a matter of sorting out details between the landlord and tenant to really make this work for both parties. I think it's a really great addition to an urban village to have a curling club. Rec area is pretty awesome to start with, right? So in court, like as Mr. Busch would I'm sure agree that having that kind of recreation facility is a nice win that you already have it. So I don't know if that's fair to ask you at this point, but if you could comment, that'd be great.
Through Mayor Nuttall to Councillor Harris. So Councillor Harris, unfortunately, just in my capacity as a planner, I'm not involved in those sorts of discussions between a landlord and a tenant. So I personally haven't been involved in any discussions with the club in Greenwald. But what I've been told is those discussions have happened and will continue to happen as this thing moves forward.
Thank you. Maybe last one follow-up. How soon do we think we would see a rendering of that black spot on the current design?
I think through your worship to Councillor Harris, I think at the end of the day, it's, those aren't inexpensive to complete. And so, we're really trying to understand, as I mentioned earlier, what we can actually build in order to develop a rendering that would be presented to the city and to the public through the next application process, which would be the subdivision and site plan process, where those sorts of elevations would be very realistic because there would be some massing and zoning provisions in place that would bring those things to life versus concepts is what we're showing now.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall.
And Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Just one question, Mr. Vella, and I probably already know the answer to this, but I think obviously this has garnered a lot of attention. It's not too often that we have a full gallery like we do tonight, so I'm just going to be straight, blunt to the point. The purpose of the CHIA, is it to resolve the issues around the schools, or is there some piece of this also tied to the curling club?
Through your worship to Councillor Harvey, very good question, Councillor Harvey. So none of this is tied to the curling club. This is really to deal with the school property, and there's two schools fighting for one site and trying to sort out who's going to and how that's all going to work. So that is one of the main reasons why we pursued the CHIA process, because we really don't want to be stuck in the middle of two school boards fighting over this property, and we don't want this to delay the development of this piece. So we have seen in the past in Barrie fights with school boards taking a very, very long time to resolve, and we don't think that is the right direction for the city of Barrie to take or for this property.
Great, thank you. That's exactly what I thought you were going to say. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Thank you, Mr. Vella. If there's no other questions, and I don't believe there are, thanks for your presentation this evening. Oh,
There might be
sorry.
one more, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Nixon. I apologize, sir.
That's quite all right, thank you. Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Mr. Vella. I think when I originally looked at the agenda, as many of us did, earlier this week, and seeing both yourself and Mr. Busch on the agenda, we almost, I know I did, I looked at it, I said, oh, this could be an interesting back and forth. But I think we've realized through listening to both of you that there's a lot more in common than, you both have a lot of things that, that you agree on with both. Overall, it might seem like very different proposals, but there's a lot of things that you both agree on. And I am certainly the last person that anybody wants to talk to about any sort of planning advice. But the only advice that I will give both of you gentlemen is you guys might want to exchange business cards, because I think either, as you say, as you get into your changes and tweaks as you look at the planning, there could be a lot of things that you're going to have in common. So that's the only advice I'm going to give. So I'll leave it up to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. And I think with no other comments or questions, Mr. Vella, thank you. And we will move on to our next deputation this evening. And I will now call upon Norman Speake on behalf of the Barrie Curling Club to deliver a deputation. Mr. Speake, there's 5 minutes after you begin speaking. And like other speakers, if there's questions, those will be directed afterwards, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome to City Council.
I had a lot I have to say, but wasn't going to go into 5 minutes anyway. And now I'm going to have to use the first bit to ensure that people understand. All right? The lease that the Barrie Curling Club has with the developer will have to be significantly altered for this development to go through. It is just not true to say that nothing is going to be impacted as a consequence of this. The access road from Essa will run clearly through the property delineated in our lease. So it is going to have to be amended. Now, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Housing shortage, affordable housing, fast tracking. We get all that. We understand that. We support that. But what we won't get, is that the Barrie Curling Club has to be a casualty. Sacrificed on the altar of one of the above. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a distinct possibility. There are major changes that are going to happen before the Barrie Curling Club can agree to an amendment with the developer. Now, I don't have time to be diplomatic. There are two things that I think I've not got through to council. One is the importance of the Barrie Curling Club to the city of Barrie. And it's not just 500, 600, 700 members. It's all the other people that use the curling club. You could probably double those numbers. Okay, it's the bond spiels we hold. It's the economic impact we have as a consequence of bond spiels, as a consequence of spending money in Barrie. It's all the charitable and social groups that we support on an ongoing basis. Okay? We have a fabulous amount of volunteers, a fabulous class of volunteers that all have their own charities and all bring them to the curling club, and the members of the curling club step up all the time. I've heard it said here, and I think it's a prevailing thought within council, that this is a landlord and tenant matter, and that's all it is. And council doesn't need to involve itself. I don't take anything away from that. There is a landlord and tenant element to it. And why? Because the city requires the access road from Essa to go through our land. Otherwise, we could just carry on with the lease that we have that runs to 2148. Not a problem. The only reason that lease has to be amended is because of the city's requirements. So, okay, it's a landlord and tenant matter. Council can sit back, the city can sit back and say, let them sort it out. Let me assure you, it will not be sorted out. Because at some point in this process, the city is going to step in, at site plan, I hear, at the very latest, is going to step in and say, no, we need this. This has to happen. This is not acceptable. You have seen the draft plan and rendering that the developer has provided. There is a white square, as Councillor Harris pointed out. You don't know what's in that white square. But eventually you're going to be concerned. And you know what's more important here? We don't know what's in that white square. For those of you who are here in April, you heard the developer commit to working with the Barrie Curling Club. 8 months later, we don't know what's in that white square. This CHIA application, and I got to be real quick or people better ask the right questions. This CHIA application is to expedite the matter. That only works if we get it right the first time. I'm going to presume that if you want a piece of land rezoned, you're going to have to define what that piece of land is accurately. How can you do that if we haven't fully defined that white square and the boundaries around it? I don't know how you do that. You have, 10 seconds. You have a clause that protects a park. If the school boards don't take it up, then there is a clause in there that was deemed important that it will be a park. The city thought that was important. Why does the Barrie Curling Club not have the same consideration as a swath of undefined grass? Put the clause in, make it a prereq. Give us a challenge to have this done by the end of February, because if you think that it will be done by the end of February without the city's involvement, I'm sorry, ain't gonna happen.
Thank you, Mr. Speake, and I did give a few extra moments there.
Any questions?
Before I go to other questions, I actually just, I want to ask Ms. Banfield, so with regards to the deputant's, I guess, proposal, the city's requiring the road to go through what they already have a lease on. Is what I'm gathering from the deputation exactly. Is that accurate? Is it the city that's requiring that it go in exactly that location?
Mayor Nuttall, the Curling Club property does need to be redefined because of the Essa Road needs to access the lands, and that was all kind of part of the EA process for the work. So there is some refinement that is needed because of that work. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. The overall process for the CHIA, would this be the time where that needs to be defined? And I guess the question I'm asking is the zoning portion where this would need to be done at this point, or would this be done at a later point, like site plan, those types of things? And I don't know the answer, so I'm asking.
So Mayor Nuttall, when staff would come back with, after kind of the consultation and the engagement period, staff would come back with a draft CHIA order for council. At that time, it would have to, the boundaries would have to be defined as to where on that property where the curling club would be. So it doesn't have to be decided tonight, but it'll be something that will have to be decided, within the next couple months.
So it has to be decided prior to it being sent off to the province is the answer?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to go open to questions on the floor. Councillor Harris, then Councillor Rietma.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Maybe just a quick question for Ms. Banfield through you. Ms. Banfield, is the road location for this newest proposal for this property the same as the one that we saw when Osmington presented, I've lost track now, 2021?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harris, I don't actually know the answer to that. I'd have to come back and take a look at it.
Okay, I probably should have dug through old stuff to see. I was just curious. I know similarly there was obviously when Osmington got to this similar part in the process, it was the curling club obviously was still concerned about how that was being displayed. So thank you, Mr. Speake. Thank you for the deputation. Hope I have questions for your answers that you want to give. But I just, one of the challenges, obviously, in both, I think, when Osmington had their proposal and now this one is the curling club's expectation or concerns with how it will impact the functioning of the curling club. Can you give a bit more detail on the impact of the street? Because right now you come through, you drive in, when it was a fairground site, you drove in through there. What is the impact of that being a road versus a driveway that it used to be, and you drive in, you go into the fairground buildings and such? They would use that to go to their offices and things. What would be the concern with that road being there instead of being a driveway?
It's a little more complicated than that, but that road goes through the parking that we now have. And the parking we now have is it's essentially a rectangle. And obviously the most efficient way to park cars is a common rectangle. And it's oriented towards the front door of the building. This road going through there will take out, probably 75% of that. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. The problem is, where then do you put parking if you're taking it away from there? And the proposal has been that, well, we'll just put the parking at the back of the building. Well, all well and good. Somebody takes your driveway away from your house and tells you to park in the backyard. Maybe not the fairest thing that comes across. So we think something can be done to, provide us with parking that's a little more reasonably oriented to the front door. We don't think this is a big ask. I mean, there are some other aspects that go along with this, and I'll be the first to say that, that white rectangle is still pretty white. We're in discussions, I'm going to say discussions, with the lawyers for the developer. And it's a little difficult coming up with what the developer's latest offer is. We've taken every opportunity, made every effort that we can to figure out exactly what might be within that. And the developer has made proposals before. In the middle of 2022, in the middle of this summer, they put a proposal together. But that proposal, as near as we can determine, does not align with what's being offered in this particular application. And in addition to the pure parking area, we don't feel that the Barrie Curling Club should subsidize the profits of this development. If this goes ahead, the Barrie Curling Club, as near as we can figure, is going to incur initial upfront expenses in turning the areas that are not parking lot now into parking lot. And we will incur additional expenses for snow clearance because we'll have no place to put it and we'll have to truck it out, and the parking will be all over the place and be more expensive. And, as you heard today, the developer has offered us landscaping. Who's going to mow that? And 44,064 residences with 3,500 parking spots. Anybody want to guess where the visitors are going to park? Who's going to pay for that? I mean, Councillor Hess, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to put this in the context. All we're asking for is, don't put us in a substantially worse position than we are now. And tell us what's in that so that we can make a determination of how we're impacted. But we won't know that until the city's had its say.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Speake. That's all. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. I'm going to go with Councillor Riepma, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to follow up on the question that you asked of Ms. Banfield. There's some concerns with the curling club, and as I understand it, this is the first step of the process, and that it will come back to council at some point for us to make a recommendation whether it should proceed or not proceed. Excuse me. And I heard you say, Ms. Banfield, that a lot of the matters with the curling club would be resolved when you come back to council. I've heard also that there are other concerns about this project, like traffic and contamination and servicing and, a number of other ones. And of course, the school has been mentioned. Will all of those be resolved when you come back to us with a recommendation?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Riepma, no, they won't be all resolved. I think the last time we had this conversation, I was saying that we'd be able to come back with a list of all the consultation that we've heard which would be from the public and also the Indigenous communities, and council then would be able to understand if they wanted to continue with the route by going to the minister. A lot of the technical items that you're talking about would be addressed through like a draft plan application or a site plan application that would come after the land use would be in place through the Community Infrastructure and Housing Accelerator. With respect to the curling club specifically, though, because of the zoning piece, we would obviously have to make sure that anything that came back to council would have the zoning in place appropriately for the curling club to remain in perpetuity or what have you. So the land use piece of the curling club, 100%, will be brought back as part of the submission to council in Q1 of 2024, but a lot of those technical details will be worked through subsequent applications.
Thank you.
Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. Mr. Speake, you seem upset. You seem passionately upset, and I take that seriously.
Upset's not the word I would have chosen, but
I'm not allowed to use those words. I'll get in a lot of trouble. We can talk after though. And I'm not trying to belittle it. Like, I take that seriously. How many years have you been dealing with whoever owns this property, whether it be the current owner or the previous Osmington? For yourself, 5 years?
coming up to 5 years.
Okay. And I'm going to be presumptuous here. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming your predecessor was also dealing with Osmington and previous owners?
Before
That
my
situation?
time.
Okay. So I've seen this land more or less be empty since I was probably 12 years old. So that's probably 18 years now. So I'm putting into context to it's entering generational periods of stagnation. The land, not the curling club. So in your 5 years, how many times have you in person met with the owner of the property?
In person?
If you saw them on Zoom.
You're talking about the entire 5 years, including Osmington? Osmington probably met with, and I'll include Zoom in person.
Yeah.
Probably half a dozen times.
Okay.
Digram, one.
Okay, so 6, 7 times. So in that time and 5 years, and what I'm hearing, I was taking notes while you were speaking. So the snow storage, for example, the land that where the curling club stores its snow, is that land part of your lease, or is that adjacent land outside the lease boundary?
It's adjacent empty land.
Okay, fair enough.
It's just been good. Snow clearance is cheap. Start at one end, sweep it off, turn around, go the other way. It's going to be a little more difficult going forward.
Fair enough, because they're going to develop around
But we
you.
have, to make a fine point of it, had unfettered use of that land for a period in excess of 7 years.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And the reason I ask you these questions is, I guess, Mayor Nuttall, I'm going to turn more into, still a comment, but to a question to engage the speaker. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated that since I was 12 years old, this land hasn't been programmed, and there's no future, there's no opportunity. I'm happy that it went from mostly office and retail space to housing. We need to house people, whether it be affordable or not affordable. We just need housing of all types, period. I'm thankful that we have visionaries like Mr. Craig Busch over here going, hey, do it, but do it correctly. Which I think a lot of his views, maybe we don't agree with all of them, but less cars or proper amount of parking for the cars we have is something most people can agree with. But what I am frustrated about is the fact that what it feels like is the 11th, maybe 11th and a half hour. It feels like it's coming down to, either say no and protect the curling club or say yes and sacrifice the curling club. I have nothing against curling. I think I've curled maybe 3 times in my life. It was so much fun being taken there when I was younger. And I absolutely agree with you that there needs to be a future where the curling club is integral to the identity of Barrie, period. But I will also enthusiastically support this redevelopment and this GA application, no doubt. Do I want the province to hear loud and clear that the concerns of the curling club needs to be taken seriously? Yes. But it frustrates me that 5 years worth of conversations have led to you having to make a 5-minute deputation about snow storage. That's not fair to you. That's not fair to the applicant. And I just don't know how it can be resolved besides, I don't know, getting everybody in a room and moving forward. So I hope you're afforded that opportunity.
I can tell you that in an email we sent to Digram in August of 2022, we told them then that we would need the city's input, an agreement as to the site plan within that box before we would agree to anything. This is the last minute, yes, but, with the right involvement, this is not a big ask. And Mayor Nuttall made it clear there are 3 stakeholders. I'm not going to disagree with that from a legal viewpoint, but anytime I've moved into a discussion, negotiation, whatever you want to whatever you want to call it, you look at the aims of the parties. And really, I'm not going to talk about the motivation and the aims of the developer. It's up to them. But I can tell you that the motivations and the aims of the Barrie Curling Club and the City of Barrie, as represented by council, should be the same. Absolutely should be the same. So let's sit down, sort it out, tell each other what it is that we want out of this, have a look at what the developer is offering, and make some proposals. But we've got to know what the city wants.
Mr. Speaker, I couldn't agree more with you that the aim should be the same. I spent 3 hours 3 weeks ago Googling sites on Bryan Drive to purchase for you. Not personally, but maybe because the hotels are there. Imagine a future where you could have a facility across the street from hotels on Bryan Drive. I literally I'm like, could we approach the outdoor sports store? They have a little bit of land. So trust me, I'm putting my money where my mouth is when I say I believe in a future where you guys are integral to that. But I'm also wondering about your actual facility. Let me just ask you a very quick question. Is the current building AODA compliant?
What compliant?
Accessibility provincial standards.
No.
Is it compliant with the
No,
new accessibility provincial standards? It's grandfathered, okay. So how much, and I don't know if you can speak on behalf of everybody, but I'm going to be presumptions and say yes. How much of these asks are objective and how much is the curling club emotionally attached to the building itself? Because I'm wondering if there's a future for the curling club, if not with this specific shell, maybe still on site, but with either upgraded, renovated, or replaced structures.
Bring it on.
Okay.
Hey, look.
Okay.
We're not wedded to that building. Boy, I would dearly love to have a discussion and talk to the developer into building us a new shack. Maybe something a little better than the cow barn we've got now. But, hey, I've got a developer that doesn't want to pave the parking lot. It's a bit of a reach to go and say, well, how about you shell out $15 million? Like, we would be happy.
Okay.
We've been through this before. We have designs.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nuttall, for the time. Mr. Speake, I'm glad that you spoke on the record. I'm glad that you conveyed your passion. You come, to me personally, you come off very authentic and real. And Mayor Nuttall, I think maybe the province should get a copy of Mr. Speake's answers to some of these questions so they can really get a context of the whole situation.
Please, feel free. You're all invited down to the curling club. Come and visit us. I've got a lot I didn't get to say because I had to say stuff I didn't think I had to say. And Mr. Nuttall, Mayor Nuttall, a challenge to you. Team building exercise down at the Curling Club. Give us a shout.
Sir, I would love to, but when I have a good foot, I'd embarrass myself curling. And I don't have a good foot.
We have some volunteers that can teach you how to be a very good spectator.
Look, as long as the bar is open.
Give us a shout, sir. Thank you.
Before you go, sorry, sir, it's obviously people care about, it's really cool. People care about, I think, this site, the history of the site, the heritage of the site, the use of the site. And so you're the third speaker in the row who's tried to walk away before questions were done. And that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. It's a good interaction with council. So Councillor Harvey, I think you had a question for Mr. Speake.
Actually, not so much a question for yourself, sir, but I think you can get the vibe around the table that obviously we're here to also protect the best interests of the curling club. My question would be more for staff through the CAO, and I'm not sure because it's more of a legal question. I find it concerning that the current developer has only had one meeting prior to tonight's meeting with the group to try and resolve these issues. And if in fact they're asking for all these concessions and they're not willing to pay for it, that's obviously concerning too. But when it comes to these two groups, if they can't come to an agreement, what's the next step? Is there a next step? Because I can't fathom that we would ever get to a situation, and I don't even think that we would even have the legal authority to do it, for us to be the deciding factor, or does the province even have that ability to be able to step into a situation? Because the reality of it is, the curling club has still got over 100 years left on this lease by the sounds of it, so they're pretty much holding the golden ticket. And I just don't know that you can jump in and take that golden ticket away from them when that long-standing lease has been signed. Now, I'll give you a first chance to response, and then maybe our staff will be able to add to it, sir.
Councillor Harvey, if you're concerned about standing, consider this a formal invitation to come to the table. We have a meeting on Monday. We're not entirely sure what's going to happen on the meeting. It starts at 10 o'clock at the Curling Club. We would be most gratified if the city could find a way to attend that meeting. And we would consider you to be a legitimate participant. And given that we can't come to an agreement with the developer until such time as we know what the city wants, I'm sure the developer will welcome you there as well. You know, come as an expert with a list of the things that the city is going to require. Come as a technical expert. You know, where could we find a better technical expert than somebody from the city? And come as an advocate. You know, come as an advocate for the Barrie Curling Club. Come as an advocate for the city. You're welcome. Please. Now, we're going to carry on, but, you know, we're feeling a little put upon, frankly. You might have gathered that from my tone.
Thank you, sir. And I think that the second part of your question was for CEO Prowse, who may or may not pass it to somebody else.
Thank you for the question, Mayor Nuttall. I would defer to Ms. Peters. I'm not sure if she's prepared to take it on the fly. I think I would preface by saying that it is important to note, as I understand it, it is a landlord-tenant matter. And while the city definitely will have input, you know, by invitation, by hook or by crook, we're not really a decision maker in that relationship. We are an approval authority, and certainly we will play a role in that. But I think it would probably be unfortunate if the role of the city was misconstrued. We can certainly play a role in guiding the conversation, and I think Ms. Banfield has heard loud and clear the comments from council. This discussion has gone on in this municipality, as Councillor Morales spoke to, for a long, long time. And the Curling Club throughout that period of time has been quite vocal and quite clear that they need to be part of a discussion around what the future of the broader site is, including the expansion of Essa Road. I really don't see that being much different today, except council is once again dealing with an application for this site. So there is a landlord-tenant matter. The city will continue to play a role. I don't believe we have a hammer in this relationship, which I suspect is really what the Curling Club is asking for, is can we apply pressure? And I think there are opportunities where we can apply pressure, but they are on the approval matters. They are on the planning matters. They are not on a legal relationship between the two entities. But that was a long preface, and I would look to Ms. Peters if she had anything to add. And she can shake me off as she sees fit.
I do not have anything to add. I think the first thing that needs to be looked at is the lease, and I haven't seen that, so I wouldn't hazard a comment on the nature of what the city could express a view on until that was examined. I'm sorry.
Great, thank you. And just a follow-up, if I could, Mayor Nuttall, just to the deputant's comments in regards to this upcoming meeting, is there some ability, whether staff attend in person or whether it's at least at bare minimum an email from Ms. Banfield as the director of our planning department, to at least set out the parameters as to what the city is looking for? Because obviously, without that down on paper, by email, whatever, it's really a he said, she said. And like, I mean, if we're trying to come to some resolve so that way this development can occur with the least amount of impact to those that are already there, I think that's something that is a reasonable ask, so that way both sides involved in these discussions know exactly what is required by the city and for what reason. So that way then that really helps guide those discussions. Whether they go anywhere or not's another story, because it might be asks that aren't acceptable to one of the two parties. But without something on some type of documentation to kind of help guide these two people, I think they're just potentially going to continue to spin their wheels. I was just wondering if that's a possibility leading up to their Monday meeting.
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harvey, certainly we'll take that away as an opportunity. I think part of the challenge here, this is still an evolution of a process. So city staff don't have all of the information, nor do we have all of the questions yet. But I think we can get together as a team and provide some additional information that might help facilitate and guide the conversation between the two parties.
Great, thank you. We'll leave it in your trusting hands.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Thank you, Mr. CEO, and thank you, Mr. Speake, for your presentation and for answering the questions this evening.
Thank you.
I'm now going to invite Kathy Colbatch to deliver a deputation. Ms. Colbatch, you have 5 minutes once you start speaking. And if there are questions, if you can remain at the mic afterwards, in case there are questions for you as well.
Good evening, Mayor Nuttall, members of council and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to address our concerns around the Green World application for the CHIA order for the Old Barrie Fairgrounds. We can all agree this is a special piece of property with great opportunity to increase residential, mixed use, commercial, parkland, and the potential for a school. However, we need to be respectful of the existing community and surrounding neighborhood. We keep referring to this area as the gateway to the city, but who actually thinks a wall of tall towers is welcoming? As a member of the public who has been engaged with this city for many years on the updated official plan and zoning bylaws, we are extremely concerned that all of our hard work and as a community and city is being circumvented. Developers, including this applicant, were also involved in this process. This property has sat vacant for years, not because residents oppose it outright or processes of planning are not doing their job, but because applicants continue to speculate and flip properties. We have no mechanism in place around timelines and commitments to build. This particular applicant has only been in the picture for a year. Our current planning processes have been improved upon, and are working. By approving this process, you are bypassing years of planning, staff, and community engagement. Yet, here we are. This is precedent setting and not in a good way. The ongoing provincial policy changes and legislation that continue to be pushed and then reversed is alarming, to say the least. The official plan approved by council, then modified by the province, then potentially more changes to unwind those changes. What What had been previously approved is using our staff resources and not leaving residents with confidence in the provincial or municipal governments. At the provincial level, decisions are made without public input up front. Our democracy is being impacted. We look to our council to make the best decision on our behalf. Most CHIA orders are used to support and expedite building all kinds of housing forms, although this particular application is not including any transitional, supportive, cooperative, purpose-built rental, rapid housing, tiny homes, or long-term care. So simply put, this applicant is building market-rate units for profit. If this application were more supportive of these different types of housing for new and existing residents, we may not be as concerned. By allowing this process to play out and potentially be approved down the road, we are making too many concessions in the process. Removing important minimums and maximums around parking, lot area, lot coverage, as an example, 90 to 100% of the front yard to be used for parking in townhomes, no minimum parking for schools, no parking for commercial retail, heights above our approved OP up to 145 meters, or approximately 40 to 45 stories. The list of potential concessions bypassing the existing official plan is concerning. If this process is approved by the minister, how much actual time is saved to get shovels in the ground versus following the municipal process, which is well underway for this application? We, as a municipality, are issuing permits for second and third suites, accessory dwelling units that were to be affordable, but as we know, are not. As council, part of your strategic priorities is to build affordable units, and within our OP, we require 20% affordable in the urban growth center. No matter what happens, the MTO, the Ministry of Education, and school boards will be involved in this project either way. The minister and council have the ability to request conditions against the CHIA, and we sincerely hope council will do so when the time comes. There have been so many iterations on this file, we aren't even sure what the final rendering will be. Risks, what the minister may or may not approve, or set conditions on or timelines around in the minister's response timelines. We are wasting valuable planning resources doing a CHIA for this application. My ask would be to deny this request and allow the current planning application to proceed, or once all the public comments come forward and staff report come back, request conditions such as affordable housing and things like the Barrie Curling Club information that's required. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Colbert. Any questions from members of council? None. Just wanted to just qualify something really quickly. We did actually have a meeting 2 weeks ago tonight with regards to our official plan where members of the public were able to come in
Yes.
And give comment.
Yes.
At that meeting, there was a request to build affordable housing down at Gowan, Cumberland. Yeah, and I think it was about what?
Essa, Gowan, William, Cumberland?
Yeah, I think it was
Yes.
about 30
Yes.
stories that was being requested.
Yes, that is not on, I don't believe that's before the planning committee at this point.
No, it was, the request came in though with
Yes.
regards to the official plan.
Yes, that's right.
So
A gentleman was
you
here
mentioned-
explaining. Yeah, I was
Yes,
here.
so you just mentioned about if this specific proposal included more affordable units, it could be supported. Is that something like across the community, or is that?
Absolutely, because
Okay.
mixed use is mixed use.
Yeah.
In my mind, anyway, mixed use should be all of it. You know, whether it's rapid housing, transitional housing, affordable units. We know, we've tried to build affordable units by putting in second suites and third suites and accessory dwelling units. Well, I can tell you in my own neighborhood that those accessory dwelling units and/or suites are going for $3,000 a month. That's not affordable. And so, you know, if we continue to build, you know, big single detached homes and you know, don't make good density, and by density, I don't mean 40 and 45-story towers. I don't think that we should be doing that. I also agree with Craig's vision in a way, in terms of having, you know, more middle housing, but what's being offered here is not that.
Awesome, thank you. You'll be happy to know that in our letter we sent off to the province today, my recommendation was to actually go back to the affordable housing motions. There's a few that were changed by the province when they changed our OP. We have asked those be returned back to the original OP, as we heard from members of the public a few weeks ago at that public meeting.
Right. And could I just make one more comment?
Yeah.
I sort of said at the end, like, if you're going to go ahead and approve this, let's put some conditions around it, or simply for tonight, consider deferring this until you actually feel like you're comfortable enough to make the proper decision.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just want to clear something up here. This will not approve the CHIA going to the province tonight.
No, I know. I understand
Right?
that.
So,
I do understand that.
So this will ask staff to come back with all of the consultation information, recommendation to us on whether to do a CHIA or not. So I don't want anyone in the audience to think tonight that if it's approved, then that's it. That's actually not the case.
No,
What'll happen
and
is information will come back in February-ish, and then that'll be the timeline of the final decision.
Right, and hopefully by that time we understand if we want to place conditions on that CHIA as well. We actually know what they are.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
as the Barrie Curling Club has said, we don't even know what the final rendering looks like, or we know number of units, but what are the towers going to look like? We know nothing.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm now going to call on upon Arnie Ibsens to come down to the microphone. Mr. Ibsens, I have to say it's not me being mean, but you have 5 minutes. It'll start once you start speaking, and then if you can hang around in case there's questions as well, sir, if that's okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Nuttall and council members. The previous owners of the old fairgrounds, Osmington, for all their flaws, at least had, in my opinion, recall more of a community vision for this property. This latest proposal from Greenwell reminds me of a high-stakes poker game, so bear with me. Greenwell sits at the table of the city of Barrie, and they bid 9 high-rises, or about 6,000 to 8,000 people on the fairgrounds property. Then Premier Doug Ford arrives and is a new dealer with Bill 23 and the CHIA. So now Greenwell has a pair of aces, which is Bill 23 and the Premier, and pushes all in, raising their bid from 9 high-rises to 13 high-rises, which is now about 10 to 15,000 people on just 55 acres. Fort Erie has a population of 15,000 people spread out over 14.62 square kilometers. This site is 0.22 square kilometers, so let that sink in. So what does the city of Barrie do now? Do they fold their hand, or do they call and take charge? If you want to build high-rises, build them down by the Ghost South Station instead of continuing the sprawl, such as out in Mapleview area or in Hawley. And that's what this is all about, being strong and holding firm, holding true to your values. It takes a lot of courage to stand up and do the right thing, and the right thing is to honor your oath to the city, your constituents, and the official plan. Speaking of the official plan, it states the plan responds to our community's land use, development, and conservation goals. Through the guidelines it provides on how land in Barrie can be used, the plan mobilizes stakeholders in our community to take positive action for the future. It helps the city make wise decisions with the understanding that the sum total of decisions guided by the plan will help us achieve the Barrie of the future that we envision. Is this truly your vision of what Barrie is, or should be? There's a reason why the city of Barrie has departments of planning, engineering, building services, infrastructure, transit, zoning, and development services, to name a few. Use them. Trust them. There's no need for a CHIA. So why bother having them if you're inviting the province of Ontario to decide what will be built here? In Bob Bruton's article for Barrie Today, dated November 30th, sorry, Mr. Nuttall, your quote is saying, and I was here when it was said, this really does draw out why the province needs to be the decision maker on this province. And so we, council, are a regulator over the land use on the local level, but really these questions and these competing priorities are not ours. They're the province of Ontario's, and they should be the ones making the decision, and they should be the ones figuring out what works. With all due respect, these priorities are yours and ours. Is this really what you want? Wash your hands and pass the buck and say, we didn't have anything to do with it. To not have a seat at the table and let the province decide the future of this site is a colossal mistake. Speaking of colossal, there was a picture I sent that of Highway Yvonne at Highway 7 and the 400, and that's similar to what this is, and this is going to be what you want as the gateway of Barrie to look like. Not one resident I have spoken to has said no to developing this property. We're not NIMBYs, but we all agree that it has to be done properly, carefully, and at the local level. Residents on Campbell are not happy, but accepting at looking at townhomes previously from the kitchen and backyards. Now they're not accepting of looking at 13 high-rises from their backyards or 40 stories. There's a house for sale on Campbell, 34 days it's been sitting there. Is it overpriced, or maybe nobody wants to move into this neighborhood? And after 37 years of living in this area, I may join them. And should I mention traffic, with 10 to 15,000 people plus 2 schools, with all the staff and parents driving to and from, located on 55 acres with only one main entrance, traffic will be backed up onto the 400. I even had a thought today that maybe invite the Toronto Blue Jays to move up their farm team from Buffalo and build a stadium there. Who knows? Anything can happen. In the CHI application, there's mention of a website for community feedback. I would suggest that in lieu of, or in addition to that an open house be held with detailed plans similar to the Essa Road corridor and Osmington open houses that we had in previous years, with notices mailed to residents who live in the area. And that way we can have more people and their input. A year ago, the 5 strategic priorities you came up with for your term in office were affordable place to live, community safety, thriving community, infrastructure investments, and responsible governance. These priorities are all important, and this proposal does not address the affordable place to live one. It simply is a way to appease the provincial government by sticking as many people as you can into a small space. Responsible governance can be defined as it entails rules, norms, processes, and practices that incorporate values into administrative decisions and combines accountability with discretionary action. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ipsons, for your comments. Are there any questions from members of council? Seeing none, with just 2 things. Number one, yes, the province is, but also the federal government is. They are essentially holding dollars that they've set aside through the, I believe it's called the Accelerator Fund, for municipalities to deal with housing issues out until they see those municipalities intensifying to the degree in which they are comfortable. So as of today, the City of Barrie hasn't hit that, even though, you know, we've done obviously a ton at this point. And the second thing is, in terms of the comments of mine in the newspaper, just want to qualify the priorities, competing priorities on this site between the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Transportation, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing are things that the City of Barrie has no ability to be the regulator over. We are told what to do by all 3. It seems at this point that those 3 haven't talked, haven't spoken, haven't come up with a plan, and so that was with relation to the priorities. Thank you so much for your presentation tonight, sir. Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kungl, that Section D of the General Committee Report dated November 29, 2023, as circulated, be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kungl, to Section D of the General Committee Report dated November 29, 2023, as circulated, be adopted. 23G 280, submission from Innovative Planning Solutions on behalf of Greenwell Construction, Inc., report and master plan in support of community infrastructure and housing accelerator order 175 and 199 Essa Road and 50 Wood Street. Any questions or comments with regards to Councillor Harris?
I'd like to put it on the floor as printed.
Sorry, it's on the floor through what was moved, and would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, sorry, I'd like to speak to the motion, pardon me.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. So, fabulous discussion, 5 really compelling deputations tonight. Appreciated all that was shared on multiple sides of this, community interest through Vision Barrie, resident interest through Ms. Kolbach and Mr. Ipsons, and obviously the Curling Club interests of Mr. Speake, and certainly it was good to have Mr. Vella here on behalf of Greenwell to kind of help provide a good picture of what this is and what this isn't. And I just wanted to, as we come to this vote, just through you, Mayor Nuttall, I just kind of want to clarify one of the key points of where we are in this CHIA process. I think that's so important because what this has done, obviously, right now is it provided an early and maybe an added opportunity for our community to speak on this. And so I think that's a good thing. So I'm happy for that. And we heard some great discussion, and thank you, council members, for asking some really great questions to help give us more clarity on the relationship between the Curling Club and Green World, and the opportunities to thoughtfully and really selectively activate this property. And Councillor Morales, you're so right. As a very young person, you didn't get to experience all that was the Barrie Fairgrounds and the harness racing and all the things that happened there. They're long gone, but the Curling Club's still there. And obviously the opportunity to develop that land is there, and it really needs to be developed. And nobody, we heard that, nobody's against that. And so that's really, we can definitely grow from those seeds of agreement that we want to see this property activated and see it done in a way that we're proud of and that really meets the needs of all those interested parties that were here tanight. So maybe one quick question. Thank you, Nuttall, for your patience. We are right now just confirming, and maybe through you to Ms. Banfield, that we are confirming to begin with the process for the CHIA. This is not confirming a CHIA order. That is several steps away and requires several levels of activity to happen, including a robust community consultation about what is being proposed by Green World. Is that accurate?
Through you, Mayor Nuttall, to Councillor Harris, that is correct.
Great, thank you very much. So again, I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and for really engaging and starting the discussion. Maybe a little early on the details, but it's never too early, and I think it was really well noted that it's unfortunate that there has not been more conversation with the current developer and the Curling Club, for example, as that landlord-tenant issue, which we know is critical to this development. So hopefully that will be happening, and I will take up the invitation of Mr. Speake, who may have gone, to attend that Monday meeting at 10 o'clock at the Curling Club. So happy to attend that and again, learn more and to add that to my education on this process and what's important to the parties, and hopefully see them in action, working together collaboratively towards a solution. So thank you, Mayor Nuttall.
Thank you, Councillor Harris, and thank you for certainly being able to attend that. I'm going to go to Councillor Hamilton and then Councillor Morales.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Nuttall, just a small point, a clarification, maybe Morales is going to speak to it. Item number 2, I think there's just a double negative use there. If neither of the school boards do not exercise the option, I just want to make sure I'm understanding it. We're saying that if neither of the school boards exercise the option to construct a school, okay, so that will be corrected. Just want to make sure I'm interpreting it correctly. Thank you.
Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Nuttall. This came up in it's in your minutes, right? This came up a couple weeks ago out of abundance of caution because of an application of this. Being young, I remember the meetings, Mayor Nuttall, you were at that meeting where people were confirming or trying to confirm the validity of blueprints for a certain park along the waterfront. So I don't want this to be up for debate, and this was a couple weeks ago that it should have been corrected. So I'm going to send everybody an amendment, and I'm going to need a seconder that just takes care of this. If you will.
Sorry, Councillor
Allow me
Morales,
a couple seconds
because we're at City Council.
In writing, that's why I'm sending it in writing.
I believe you need to actually fill out a form for me.
Physically?
A physical form,
Okay,
that's
so
correct.
only Zooms was okay digitally? I'm just confirming. I'm wondering if
I have no idea because I wasn't around at that
Okay,
point, but
fair enough.
Here tonight, that's what we're going to do.
My writing is, okay, this will be fun. Okay, so I'm going to send it. I'm just going to make one quick comment while I write it, and then pass the floor back to you, Mayor Nuttall. And this completely, I just wrote this down while Councillor Harris was speaking. Councillor Harris, I agree, those memories are long gone, and it is unfortunate. But Barrie's ready for the next chapter. Barrie's ready for the next generation of memories, and that is why I'm personally going to support the CHIA. So I'll give the floor back to you, Mayor Nuttall, and I'll write this out.
Thank you. Are there any other members of council want to speak to the main motion? Seeing none, we'll just take a second here and get the motion the amendment put together, and then it'll be read into the record, and we will go to the amendment.
We're good. Thank you, Mayor Nuttall, for the time. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. If members of council would check their email, there'll be a physical copy for your viewing, and this is the official copy. That of the Simcoe District School Board and the Simcoe-Muskoka Catholic District School Board do not exercise the option to construct a school in this development, that the land be conveyed at no cost to the city for the purposes of parkland. And just very quickly speaking to it, Mayor Nuttall, Councillor Hamilton caught it, leaned over to me, and it seemed familiar because I know I mentioned it a couple weeks ago at this meeting. So again, wasn't trying to be funny, but I remember watching, I think probably when I was 16, a meeting where the council at the time on technicalities of records. So it's good that this is clarified on the record so people can, all parties moving forward with the process can have complete faith in it.
Thank you, Councillor. Just before we go into, I'm just going to ask Mr. Prowse, maybe if you could just confirm. So it says for the purposes of parkland that it be conveyed to the city for the purposes of parkland, but doesn't anticipate or doesn't delineate that it's actually not above and beyond a parkland levy. And I don't think we have the power to demand the parkland plus the parkland levy. I could be wrong, but that was the conversation we had last time.
Mayor Nuttall, I believe you're correct, but I think I'd defer to Mr. Miller, who could perhaps speak to it. Or
through you, Mayor Nuttall, it's very prescribed as what we can do as a municipality in terms of parkland and the calculation. So you're limited as what you can do.
So this wouldn't be interpreted as going above and beyond the parkland levy, I guess what I'm trying to. Perfect. Thank you. Good. Any comments or questions from members of council? Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, actually, just for a little bit of clarification, because we've identified, now we're getting into specifics of identifying 2 school boards when there's actually more than 2 school boards. So what happens if all of a sudden, let's say the French school board all of a sudden gets into talks but then decides not to? Like that's the only issue that I have with actually getting into naming these school boards now, is it potentially could backfire, to be quite honest with you. So I'm not sure that we necessarily actually have to name them. So I don't know if the mover of the motion would still kind of keep the more broad wording that was in the original motion, opposed to specifically naming these 2 school boards.
I'm open to whatever makes Councillor Harvey and staff more comfortable with this. I thought bringing a focus by naming the parties at the table would be better, but if there's even the slim possibility that it could be someone else, yeah, I have no reason to exclude them.
Councillor?
Yeah, I'll leave it up to him. It's his motion, so he would have to the mover would, I would ask that the mover amend it as they see fit, but I won't support it with just the 2 being directly named, because I think it does have some ramifications potentially.
Staff to staff.
So Councillor, if it's okay with you,
yeah,
I'm because I don't think this is a big issue. I'm just going to write in it, and when I sit, like I don't know what could or couldn't happen, but I don't think it's a big issue to change the wording. So is it okay if I just write in that if no school board takes it?
Yes, that's a friendly.
Okay, and then you have to
No friendly
initial
at
it, though.
council.
You have to initial, but I'm just going to do it real quick if that's okay with you.
Yes.
Withdraw and reintroduce? Okay.
Mayor Nuttall, if I may.
Yep.
In the if we're removing the school board names from that paragraph 2, in the whereases above that, both the school board names are mentioned as well. So we either have to remove it from both or leave it in both.
And were those ones named because those were the ones that we received
Yes.
response from?
Yes.
Okay. So Councillor Harvey, I think maybe it's because we've received the responses from them and the others didn't.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. I'll be quite honest with you. I was focusing on what this amendment was and didn't realize the 2 names were mentioned up above, but as long as staff don't see an issue with it, then I'm good.
Okay, great. And Councillor Harris?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say that I didn't see a problem with naming the school boards, that they are there, and it actually is pretty clear. If neither one of them wants to take this, it'll be parkland. So I'm not sure how anybody else is involved in any way, shape, or form when it's clearly stated who these two are, and if they don't take it, it's parkland. So I wasn't concerned about the two being named.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harris. Then we'll proceed with it as it was brought forward. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? It carries. The main motion as amended. Are there any questions or comments by members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it carries.
That was the update from the City Hall. Thank you for watching.